Alright, so after a real weird week this week, I'm trying to get back in the swing of making content, and full transparency, because I want you guys' thoughts on this. I may go back to doing more content with the cartoon avatar for a while, because part of the weird thing that happened, and it's going to take me a while to get it fixed, is I bit into the wrong thing and straight up broke my teeth in 2 spots here in the front. I'm not going to show you, because it's gross, and it hurts like the dickens. But let me know if it bothers you guys, if you can see it, like, really obviously in the video, and if it bothers you guys. Because if so, I want to keep making videos, but I don't want to gross you guys out or weird you guys out. I don't see it too super bad, like, just looking at it myself, but who freaking knows. If it bugs you guys, I'll go back to using the avatar for a while, until I can get it sorted out, however that's going to happen, but it's going to, like I said, it's going to be a while. Give me my Patreon if you can. Be real helpful right now. Yeah, getting back to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we're talking about, this is the 03 series, we're talking about the Shredder Strikes Part 2 this week. And if you recall where Part 1 left off, the Shredder had just tempted Leonardo with joining his side in whatever crusade he's got going on, and in the meantime, some mysterious futuristic group that, unlike the traditional and almost like passionate almost, there's a better word for it, but you get what I'm saying, Shredder, these guys seem like cold and dispassionate, so like, who's the real villain, you know? We see them watching, and they are very wary of what choice Leo's going to make, worried that they're going to have to add him to their list of enemies. But in the end, we hear the backstory between the Shredder and Splinter, and the Turtles make the right choice. We get a bit of a moral, there's a fight at the end that's actually a really solid fight. And in any previous episode of this show, and in most episodes of most shows that are structured like this one, that's where the story would have ended, right there. With the moral playing out, the big action climax happening. But instead, we get a part 2. And it's so good. It just takes what was already a really solid episode, probably the best of the show so far, and just turns it up to 11. It's fantastic. It starts out with a very well animated and technical fight, where they destroy a building. That's my coffee maker going off. I don't know why my coffee maker is going off right now. But the fight destroys the building they're on. Completely. Like, they have to jump off the roof to escape without getting hurt, and they still get hurt. Mikey gets his ankle hurt, and in the case of, like, Raph lands in a dumpster, and we know that means he didn't take any damage at all. That's just how fiction works. But in the case of Leo and Donnie, straight up, if they hadn't had their shells, they'd be dead. And the Shredder just walks out of the destruction unharmed, and it's this really unnerving scene. It's fantastic. And now the Turtles are broken up into 3 groups. You have Leo on his own, Raph on his own, we don't really check in with him, and Donnie and Mikey on their own. And no offense to Donnie and Mikey, but especially in a version like this one, that's adapting things the way this one is, they're the weakest fighters of the group. Donnie specifically is the weakest fighter. He's more a support character, to go by Dungeons and Dragons terminology. His strengths really sit in other areas. And, like, he's still got his cleverness, and he uses that to help Mikey deal with his injury. But Mikey's main strength is his agility. And he doesn't have that right now with a damaged ankle. So we get some really tense scenes of the two of them hiding from the Shredder and his foot ninjas as they're searching for the Turtles, where it's almost treated like a horror movie. It's definitely being treated like a suspense scene, but it almost felt like a horror scene. Like a couple of horror scenes, with the Shredder being this unstoppable slasher monster. But throughout the entire thing, they're careful to punctuate everything with a little bit of humor here and there to sort of lighten the mood and make sure the suspense never really gets too bad, too difficult to deal with for the kids that are inevitably going to be watching this cartoon. In particular, my favorite comedy scenes were the ones between eventually Donatello and Splinter. But there's another really strong one with just Donnie and Mikey, where they're caught in some person's bathroom fixing Mikey's ankle by a kid who I swear has to be voiced by the voice of Ash Ketchum. Can't remember the name. I'll look it up if I remember and put it in the video. Meanwhile, while this is going on, Splinter realizes what's happened and he goes out to help, implied by that thing I said a second ago. And Leo is approached by a futuristic ninja from that group that was watching him in the previous episode. And he's got like a freaking lightsaber. And he's real cryptic, but he does make it clear that Leo made the choice that he needed to make to stay on the good side of this group and that they're allies now. So we can expect more interactions between these groups in the future, the Turtles and this other group, where hopefully things will be explained and we'll get lore. And you guys know how much I like lore, and I like lore teases. This was really cool to me. But then Splinter shows up and they all regroup. But instead of the episode, again, ending there, like where you would expect it to, we got a good fight. We got some really tense scenes. And we got a conclusion with Splinter rounding them up and saving them. But it just keeps going. Splinter's like, no, we end this now. And we get another action sequence that's not as technical as the one at the beginning of the episode. But it's still pretty good, where we see the Shredder just walking through the Turtles. Like each time one of them comes upon him in this massive fight against his forces, they go down. It isn't until, and this is something we get in a lot of adaptations of this arc and similar arcs, it isn't until Splinter steps in and uses the Shredder's strength against him to cause him to get caught in a deluge of water and then fall off a building and then have an entire water tower drop on him, that they defeat him. And then the episode ends on Splinter saying, "We have avenged my master," which brings us almost exactly to the point where the Shredder arc in the original TMNT comics ended, which wasn't even an arc. It was like 1 or 2 issues or something, wasn't it? Really need to go reread those at some point. Because initially, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was about Splinter raising his sons to get their revenge against the Shredder. And that's where the Shredder's story ended in those original comics. At least for... Oh, did he come back in the original continuity? I don't remember. But that's more or less where it ended. And yet, after they walk away, we see the Shredder punch up through the debris. He's still alive. And it's not like this is the first version of the Turtles to do this, but they're very plain here with how this scene plays out and what Splinter's dialogue is and such, that they intend to take this story beyond what it originally was, in a way that still respects the original source material. And I don't know, I didn't look up if this episode is specifically adapting one of the more modern comics, like several other episodes of this series already have. But even if it is adapting a comic that made that statement itself already, they are still making that statement on behalf of this show by adapting things the way they did. And that is a really bold statement to make, especially considering where I know stuff with the Shredder goes moving forward in this series. Like, there's a scene at the beginning of the episode where Shredder's in his armor and he takes his kabuto off and he says, I come to you as I am, or something, or I show you my true self, or something along those lines. Something to imply that something that implies that he's being forthright with the Turtles about his identity. But if you know anything about where the Shredder's story goes in this show, you know he's not. He's still lying. He's still hiding who he truly is. And that, and the scene with Lightsaber Ninja, and this statement, this mission statement for the show at the end of this episode, all of that is set up to make the payoff of who and what the Shredder really is and where they intend to take him all the stronger later on. It's really, really good. Like, I'm looking back on it with hindsight, but that's the same kind of hindsight that I would have looked back on it with had I not known those things and had gotten to them naturally. So I feel like it's still very strong. I'm just feeling the hype earlier than the typical viewer would have. This episode and the previous episode, this two-parter, definitely the strongest episodes of this show so far. I've also heard this is kind of a turning point where the show just takes off and gets better and better. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that happen. At the end of the day, though, I'm super curious. What do you guys think of this episode of TMNT 03, if you have seen it? And without getting too spoilery down in the comments, how do you feel about where they take Shredder's storyline in this show? I keep wanting to say Splinter when I'm trying to say Shredder, and Shredder when I'm trying to say Splinter. I don't know why today. That's so weird. What do you think of it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else you think would enjoy my content, subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out the various links in the description as well. There's going to be 2 links down there to 2 different books that I have for purchase on Amazon and through Kindle or just as physical copies, so give those a look. See, I did the cover on one of them, the second one, want to know what you think. But yeah, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys. I don't know what this is. Later.